In a Montana campground, a little girl is taken as she sleeps. Recalling a similar crime, investigators fear a killer is back. Desperate to find the girl alive, they face grim clues, false leads, and a cunning suspect. Police, agents, and a mother with unshakable determination struggle to solve the mystery of what happened in those dark woods.
While camping with her family in Montana, a 7-year-old girl was abducted from her tent. No one in the campground witnessed the crime, and the kidnapper left no clues. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. At the time, little was known of criminal profiling. Agents would use it as they raced against the clock to find a criminal more monstrous than anyone imagined.
Southwestern Montana, a land of epic mountain ranges and vast prairies. In June 1973, the Yeager family came to Montana from Michigan. Marietta Yeager was excited about her family exploring the West. Bill Yeager, a longtime auto worker, had taken a month off for this once-in-a-lifetime trip. It was 7-year-old Susie's first family vacation. Marietta's parents had also joined them for the trip. On Sunday, June 24th, they prepared to spend their last night in Montana's Headwaters State Park. In the morning, they would continue west. The eldest boy slept in the van, while the 4 young ones had their own tent.
All right, tuck yourselves in good, guys.
Like every night, Susie wouldn't go to sleep without a goodnight hug and kiss.
Sleep fast. Night, night.
The night was chilly. Still, the Yeager children slept peacefully. The adults slept in a camper truck a few feet away. But not everyone in the campground was asleep. Around 4 a.m., a breeze awoke 13-year-old Heidi Yeager. She noticed a hole in the tent. Then she noticed Susie wasn't there. Confused and scared, she rushed to tell her parents. Marietta Yeager tried to understand what her daughter was saying.
I just thought that she must be just somewhere around. She's around, she had to go to the bathroom, but at the same time, there's this terror rising in you that, oh, please God, don't let this be true. Don't let this be true. I mean, I can remember wanting to wake up and find out that this is not real. This is not really happening.
Then, They saw the hole sliced in the tent.
That's when it's like it or not, Marietta, this is reality, and more than she's gone, but someone has taken her.
Their hearts sank further when they spotted Susie's stuffed animals in the grass.
She was sleeping with them. She always slept with them. And she must have dropped them because she couldn't hold on to them. It made it clear to me that she was taken away by force.
Right away, Bill Yeager drove to a phone to call police.
Okay, Mr. Yeager, slow down. I need you to tell me what's going on. I want you to hold on the line. I'm going to get help.
The sheriff's dispatcher immediately radioed Gallatin County Deputy Don Houghton, who was working the night shift.
State Park Campground. Have report of a 7-year-old.
10-4, I'm away.
On the way to the headwaters, Deputy Houghton stopped to pick up City County investigator John Onstad. Violent crime was rare in the area, so at first, investigator Onstad thought it a false alarm.
We're thinking that it really must be something else, that something like this would not be a kidnapping and it would resolve itself somehow.
When the investigators arrived, the Yeager family was distraught. As the Yeagers explained what they could, they brought the investigators to the back of the campsite. That changed everything for Deputy Houghton.
And that's when we saw the tent, and that the tent had been slit, and that kind of picked things up a little bit. It was a little eerie.
Footprints from the family were scattered around the tent in the damp grass. But investigator Onstad could see one set with a clear direction.
I could see the tracks in the dew coming to and from the area where the tent was, going back to a parking area, and the parking area had no vehicles in it.
The Gallatin County Sheriff's Office contacted the FBI.
1022, Haugen here.
Special Agent Pete Dunbar took the call at the Bozeman Field Office.
Special Agent Dunbar.
The FBI often joins kidnapping investigations because of the possibility of interstate travel.
Got a call on the
In any abduction, time is critical, as the chance of finding a victim alive diminishes with each passing hour.
What is it? I'll tell you on the way.
Dunbar and Special Agent William Terry left for the campground immediately. By the time the agents arrived, local deputies had started a search for Susie and had begun interviewing the other campers. The only clues so far were the footprints and the gash in the tent. But that was enough to convince Special Agent Dunbar what happened.
No question there was a kidnapping. In some cases you don't know, some types it's a parental type of thing, but in this instance, absolutely no question but there was a kidnapping of a child.
The search quickly became one of the largest in Montana history.
We had helicopters, we used the National Guard flying, we had boats, we had all-terrain vehicles, we had riders out identifying areas of abandoned buildings, old mine sites, anywhere where a person might be located.
They began at the Yeager campsite, then expanded in widening circles. During the search, a few veteran deputies recalled a similar investigation in the same campground 5 years earlier. That crime was discovered May 5th, 1968, when during a troop outing, a Boy Scout tried to wake up his tent mate. The 12-year-old had been stabbed and beaten during the night. The scout's lung had been punctured, and he suffered severe head trauma. He died the following day. That case remained unsolved. Many of those searching for Susie couldn't help but wonder if that killer was back. While the search of the woods continued, some deputies began tracking possible suspects. Reviewing criminal records, they began with sex offenders living nearby. Those without alibis were asked to come in for lie detector tests, according to Special Agent Dunbar.
In the immediate area, there were 3 or 4 absolute prime suspects because of past activities dealing with children. One in particular that was looked at very carefully.
The polygraph examiner asked the suspect about the night Susie vanished. Though their use is controversial, polygraphs monitor changes in heart rate, respiration, and perspiration that most people exhibit when they tell a lie. The suspect said he could not remember what he was doing that night. The polygraph results were inconclusive. Hoping for more information, agents sent the suspect to a nearby psychiatric hospital to be interrogated under sodium amytal, often referred to as truth serum. A barbiturate, sodium amytal produces a relaxed state in which suspects become less defensive and therefore more talkative. Under its influence, most people are unable to lie. Once the drug took effect and the suspect relaxed, his memory returned.
Anyone by that name? You never met anyone by that name?
He remembered what he had been doing during the time of the kidnapping. He had been in Butte, Montana. We checked it out. People in Butte could verify what he said was correct, and he was eliminated.
Hopes of a quick arrest were dashed. Police and the FBI sought the public's help. Hundreds of alarmed citizens throughout Montana called in tips. Deputies followed up on each one. One caller urged authorities to interview his 25-year-old neighbor in Manhattan, Montana, describing him as odd. The deputies knew the man, a local contractor. Nothing appeared suspicious, however. And like others in the community, he said he would do what he could to help. Then, a week after Susie disappeared, a man telephoned the home of a Gallatin County, Montana deputy.
Who is this?
The deputy's wife answered.
Just a minute, let me call her.
The caller claimed to be Susie's kidnapper and demanded a $50,000 ransom be delivered to a bus station in Denver. To confirm he had Susie, he described a minor deformity: rounded, hump-like nails on the young girl's index fingers.
Okay.
The woman called her husband, who contacted the FBI at the command center set up at the campground. Special Agent Dunbar told the Jaegers about the ransom call. When he mentioned the fingernails, they were stunned. Susie did have rounded nails on her index fingers. The call was legitimate. Agents needed the kidnapper to call back with details about the ransom drop. But the call never came. A crushing blow for the family and investigators, according to FBI Special Agent William Terry.
As time went by and there was nothing to give directions as to where the money should be placed or how she was going to be returned, the hope left.
Watching deputies drag the rivers in Headwaters Park for a body was agonizing for the Jaegers. Yet Marietta and Bill refused to give up hope.
I made a commitment to stay faithful to her as her mother, that not to give up, to continue to believe that she was still alive until such time, if ever it would have to happen, that I would have to accept concrete proof to the contrary.
Still, the Yeagers could not remain in the campground forever. Bill needed to return to work, so after more than a month, the family had to go home.
And it was so hard to leave, you know, for me, to leave the last place that I had seen her.
Despite the best efforts of law enforcement, they had not been able to find the kidnapper. But soon, he would find Marietta. In June 1973, 7-year-old Susie Yeager was abducted from her tent in Headwaters State Park, Montana. Although the family had to return to Michigan, the FBI assured Susie's parents, Bill and Marietta Yeager, that they would not give up on the case.
You know, as soon as we got to Detroit, the FBI agents were waiting for us. And so I felt I could trust them. I felt that they were competent and they were willing to keep me informed. And for me, that was very important. I needed to know everything that was going on.
Though investigators thought Susie had likely been murdered, the Yeagers still hoped she was alive and that the kidnapper would make contact again. The FBI arranged for the phone company to trace any calls from the kidnapper and asked the Yeagers to place a recording device on their telephone.
I think the kids and I should be able to handle that. Doesn't seem too technical.
The family and their friends worked diligently to make certain nobody forgot about Susie. They established the Susie Yeager Reward Fund and printed 10,000 posters, which they mailed to every sheriff's office in Montana and the surrounding states, asking for them to be posted locally. Months passed. Still, the family continued to hope the kidnapper would call.
It just sort of became my task to be there on the phone. And only one time did I leave in the beginning, and that was to pick up a son, one of my kids, at a class from which he was supposed to have gotten a ride home, but that didn't show. And so I was out of the house 10 minutes, and the kidnapper called.
Following established routine, the eldest son, Dan, who remained in the house, snapped on the tape recorder.
Who is this? Would you like to know where Susie is?
Dan asked the kidnapper to release his sister. The caller complained that the police and FBI were involved.
Yeah? You may think
He said he couldn't release Susie without getting caught.
Wait, no, don't hang up. Don't hang, no.
Seconds later, Marietta came home.
Danny had just hung up the phone, and I could just tell by the look on his face. It was just stricken. He didn't even have to tell me. I knew he had just spoken to the kidnapper. And we had that call on tape, but no way of knowing who it was.
Authorities traced the call to a diner in Wyoming. Local officers checked the place, but the caller was gone, and employees did not recall anyone who had been on the payphone. FBI Special Agent William Terry.
There was a consensus of opinion at that time that Susie was dead.
Yeah.
And for some reason, this individual was attempting to torment the Yeager family.
Months passed with no new leads or calls. 8 months after Susie's kidnapping, the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office received a report that a 19-year-old woman had disappeared from Manhattan, Montana, 10 miles from the campground where Susie vanished. Her mother was worried and told the deputies what she knew. She said that her daughter, Sandra Smolligan, was last seen on February 9th, returning to her apartment around midnight after a night out with friends. Her mother said Sandra's car was gone, and no one had heard from her in days. Like almost everyone in the small town, the deputies knew Sandra. They opened a missing persons case and set out in search of her car. Gallatin County Deputy Don Houghton, still working the Susie Yeager kidnapping, was also part of the new investigation.
The area that I was assigned was to the northwest of the town of Manhattan. And this was a large area. And what we were doing was driving county roads, dirt roads, farm roads, looking for the car.
On an abandoned ranch in the Horseshoe Hills, Deputy Houghton noticed fresh tire tracks off a dirt road, then spotted something that seemed out of place.
Got out to see what it was, and it happened to be a pair of women's panties.
Houghton wanted to check out the barn nearby. The door was nailed shut. Inside, a tarp and other debris covered a car. The license plate had been removed. But in the small community, most people knew their neighbors' vehicles. Deputy Houghton recognized the car. It was Sandra Smolligan's. There was no trace of the young woman.
Needed 1013 on a white Ford.
Houghton called in the find.
WP 521.
Deputies, sheriff's posse members, and volunteers scoured 5 square miles surrounding the barn. In line searches, they marked any items that might be evidence. 2 days into the search, one group investigated a 55-gallon drum they found in a field.
Something right here. Can you get a couple pictures?
Something had been burned inside.
Step back, please. Step back.
Among charred wood were bone fragments.
And the more we looked, we found bones spread out probably over a 75-yard area, most in very small pieces. They'd been broken up, chopped up, they were burned.
In the end, they collected more than 1,200 bone fragments. A forensic pathologist determined they were human, and some were probably from an adult white female. Dental records confirmed several teeth and jawbone fragments belonged to Sandra Smolligan. Investigator John Onstad feared that Sandra's killer might have also kidnapped Susie Yeager.
There was beginning to be a connection. Probably partly due to the part of the country we live in and what goes on here, what doesn't go on here.
Sandra Smolligan had been dismembered. Whoever committed such an unspeakable crime might have taken Susie, too.
Hey, deputy.
8 months after Susie Yeager vanished from a Montana campground, deputies discovered the remains of Sandra Smolligan at a nearby Horseshoe Hills ranch. Authorities feared a connection.
There you go.
The investigators working the 2 cases frequently ate lunch together. One resident often joined them, always asking about the cases. David Masterson was an ex-Marine and a well-known local contractor. Some townspeople considered him strange. In the first week of the investigation, Masterson had been questioned about Susie's disappearance. Deputy Don Houghton knew that people who are overly curious about a crime are often involved.
On numerous occasions, David would come in and sit with us and eat. Always inquisitive. We were always cautious of what we said around him, but he was always volunteering for a search. Just kept in front of us, I guess. It bugged us.
FBI Special Agent Pete Dunbar realized Masterson was familiar with the area where Sandra's body was found.
David surfaced as a suspect again because we knew enough about David from before to know that he knew the Horseshoe Hills very well. And also, it developed that he had dated this girl, Sandra Smulligan.
Investigators asked Masterson to take a polygraph examination. He agreed.
I had a great deal of faith in the polygraph. I had had it utilized on other cases before, and invariably was a tremendous tool and never had one where it backfired.
During the examination, Masterson denied knowing anything about Susie Yeager's kidnapping or Sandra Smulligan's murder. He confirmed he dated Sandra only once because she didn't want to go out with him again. The polygraph examiner detected no sign of deception. As they had with other suspects in the Susie Yeager case, agents asked him to submit to questioning under sodium amytal.
You know Susie Yeager? I do. I mean, I've heard about her.
At the psychiatric hospital under the barbiturate's influence, Masterson calmly answered every question.
He said everything then that he told me in my interview before we did sodium amytal. He didn't deviate one iota. As far as my interview is concerned, there was no difference whether he had it or did not have it. Put the investigation back to where we had nothing. We just ran out of everything. Couldn't have been more discouraged. We didn't know where to go. We had run out of suspects.
In the spring of 1974, the stalled case gathered new momentum after Dunbar met Special Agent Patrick Mullaney, who worked in the emerging field of criminal profiling. Believing he could help, Mullaney asked for the files in the Yeager case.
Give us all the interviews you've conducted. Give us all of the results of the investigations you've conducted. And we sat down for days going over all of those interviews, especially what kind of investigation that they were conducting, and we came back with an idea.
To the profilers, the nature of the crime, including surveillance and a stealthy abduction, suggested the kidnapper had military training. He must have had the physical strength to carry and keep quiet a 55-pound girl who might be struggling. The profilers believe the perpetrator was a loner, possibly a schizophrenic, who has trouble with the opposite sex. One suspect jumped out again, David Masterson.
When we came up with David Masterson as our most likely suspect, we met a whole lot of opposition from the local police department, as well as the FBI agent. And the reason for the opposition was very reasonable. It was simply that he had been a suspect early on, and they had asked of him to take certain truth tests, and David had passed both of them.
But a schizophrenic can disassociate from reality to such a degree, he might be able to lie without exhibiting any stress, thus beating the tests. The profilers also made a prediction that the kidnapper would telephone Marietta Yeager on the anniversary of the abduction.
We felt that this was such an intimate killer that he had become personally involved in the killing and in the victim and the victim's life and in the victim's family's life, that he would much celebrate this event like a normal person would celebrate an anniversary.
To flush the kidnapper out, Marietta Yeager granted an interview to an Associated Press reporter. She said her religious faith allowed her to feel sorry for the kidnapper and that she would like to talk to him to find out why he did it. On the night of June 24th, 1974, 1 year after Susie vanished, Marietta went to bed, knowing that although she needed it, she would not rest. As she raced to the phone and recorder, she hoped, finally, to get some answers.
Yes, this is.
Exactly 1 year after Susie Yeager vanished from a Montana campground, a man telephoned Susie's mother, Marietta.
Hello?
The first thing he said was, "Is this Susie's mom?" And I mean, then I knew for certain who it was. He said, "This is the man who took her from you 1 year ago to the minute."
Can we have her back?
And then the phone went dead.
What happened? It was him.
The Yeagers were devastated.
Oh, no.
What did he say?
The call was so short, a successful trace was unlikely.
It was him.
Another call, if it should come, would be the only link to their little girl.
Hello?
I was so relieved. I was so relieved. But my mind was spinning, what's going to happen? What can I say? And so in the beginning, I sort of gave the lead to him in the conversation. He had this need to let me know that he was the one who was in control.
I have Susie. She's doing great.
The kidnapper boasted he was too smart to get caught.
Why did you...
About it.
He said he and Susie had been traveling together.
We've been going all over the place, having a great time. People think we're family.
Where is she right now?
Marietta wanted proof that her daughter was alive.
Ma'am,
She wanted to talk to Susie.
fine. You don't need to worry. Like I said,
The kidnapper said the girl was nearby, sleeping in his cabin.
She hasn't had a hair of harm.
By this time, I knew that my husband had notified the FBI. They were trying to trace the call. So I knew it was important to keep him on the phone. I wanted the FBI to get to him before he got away and find out, if I was going to get my little girl back again.
And I will do whatever it takes to
As she
get her
talked,
back.
Marietta Yeager began to take control of the conversation.
Fine with me.
She said she had been praying for him.
Don't pray for me at all.
She said she felt sorry for him.
Is she really still alive?
Her strength and compassion wore the caller down, according to FBI profiler Patrick Mullaney.
Taking care of her.
To be able to contain herself over an hour with the person that she viewed as having her child was beyond belief. The caller initially starting with the typical psychopathic challenge, "I am the one that kidnapped your child 1 year ago to the minute, this day." To turn him from that point where he's really sticking it to her to where at the end of the hour, that caller could not hang up the phone. And when he ultimately did hang up the phone, he was sobbing, crying.
I just came up with anything I could.
Agents responded to the Yeager home, hoping the call would finally lead them to the kidnapper. At the time, long-distance calls passed through a series of relay stations.
You gotta keep me informed.
Telephone personnel traced the call as far as Sarasota, Florida. But a system failure there prevented further tracing. Agents had to tell the Yeagers it didn't work.
Seems to be a problem with the trace. No, let me know.
All I could think of was that he had said Susie was asleep in his cabin and we'd lost the chance to find her.
Then, a month later, a rancher in Montana showed investigators where somebody tapped into his telephone line. His phone bill showed a call to the Yeagers in Michigan that he hadn't made. Under the lines, he had noticed fresh tire tracks that did not match his truck tires. When asked for names of people who knew the ranch well, the rancher said David Masterson used to work for him. The investigators recalled Masterson had been a communications specialist in the Marines and would know how to tap the lines. Agents looked into a new technology, voice print analysis. A person's voice is made unique by their body's physical makeup, and scientists had begun charting voice patterns using a sound spectrograph. The voice print experts compared the anniversary call recording to a recording of an interview with Masterson. They reported a match.
How you guys doing today?
Investigators confronted Masterson with the voice print analysis.
Stop by and say hello, see how you're doing. I want you to take a look at this.
They explained the results indicated he had very likely made the anniversary call to the Yeagers. Masterson told Special Agent Pete Dunbar he was unimpressed.
And he said, "Oh, shoot, you know, I've got relatives whose voices sound just exactly like mine." So we asked who they were.
To begin with, I want
Investigators put together a voice lineup consisting of Masterson and the relatives he named.
Ready?
From the ranch where the anniversary call was made, they telephoned the Yeagers.
Yes, it's Marietta. Hi, Pete. You were ready.
Each speaker identified himself by a number and read an excerpt of the anniversary call.
I'm number 1. Is this Susie's mom? We went to Lakeside Park in the Southern California Zoo.
I'm number 2.
Is this Susie's mom? We went to Lakeside Park in the Southern California Zoo.
As soon as I heard the second one, I knew that that was the voice that I had heard. You know, that was indelibly etched in my memory. I would not forget that voice.
It was more circumstantial evidence, but still nothing concrete.
Yes. Hello, Mrs. Yeager.
Investigators wanted a confession.
Yes.
We came up with the notion that the only thing that would bring him off target and motivate him to do something that might betray himself ultimately was to put him into a direct confrontation with Marietta Yeager. We requested Marietta Yeager fly all the way back out into the Bozeman area, an area which had nothing but dark memories.
Marietta had always believed that she and Susie's kidnapper would meet.
I felt this must be the opportunity. So I was very grateful for the opportunity to come out and say to him face to face and not just to a voice on the phone that I had forgiven him.
She's an extremely strong person, very different from any victim's mother that I know. And her forgiveness, well, frankly, I think is very much different. Very much different. I know she feels strong about it, and I'm not sure I agree with her.
On the morning of September 12, 1974, Marietta Yeager and David Masterson met at his attorney's office.
Something in the depth of me knew that this was the man. And when I looked into his face, I could tell by his eyes that he was a mentally ill man.
Unwavering, Marietta told him she knew he had taken Susie. Masterson insisted he was innocent. They spoke for more than an hour, Marietta trying to get him to admit what he had done, but he never cracked.
Finally, the attorney said, well, I think this is enough. We've given it a fair shot. And so we stood up, and he shook hands with me. But it took all the discipline I had to let go. He was the one. I knew he was the one, and I didn't want him out of my sight.
We'll be right back, Miss Yeager. I'm sorry, I'll be right back.
To keep the pressure on Masterson, Gallatin County deputies put him under 24-hour surveillance. They made no effort to hide the fact that they were watching. The surveillance seemed to amuse him. But on September 24th, the suspect slipped away, according to Deputy Don Houghton.
The team of officers that watched him go into his house, but he didn't come out the following morning. It got to the point that we actually went and knocked on the door, somebody did, and nobody home. We started looking everywhere we knew David frequented, went to his job sites, and there was no David.
While authorities were searching for Masterson, a man called the Yeagers. It was exactly 1 year after the kidnapper had called the first time when Marietta was out.
Ma'am?
The caller identified himself as Mr. Travis.
Stop playing games with us, David.
But as soon as he got on the phone, I knew it was his voice. What he was trying to convince me and the FBI that the real kidnapper was somebody in Salt Lake City, Utah, and not this person, David, who's being considered as a prime suspect here in Montana.
He said he could prove that Susie was alive by putting her on the telephone.
Your daughter's okay? Well, then listen to this.
He's a nice man, Mommy. We are having fun together. He takes me lots of places.
Well, I knew it wasn't Susie's voice. Susie never called me Mommy. She always called me Mama. Then my fear was that he'd bribed a child to speak those words, and that in his sick mind, this child would become Susie, and that he would harm this child, too.
David, that's not
When Marietta kept calling him David, he began to unravel.
I told you my name was Travis.
He blurted out information Marietta discussed with Masterson in Montana.
Yeah,
Things only David would know.
I can prove that I have her.
And so he totally incriminated himself. And when he realized what he did, he said, "You'll never see your little girl alive again." And he slammed down the phone.
Marietta called the FBI. And authorities traced the call to a Salt Lake City motel room, more than 400 miles from Masterson's home. But by the time they arrived, he was gone. After David Masterson eluded surveillance, investigators believed he called Marietta Yeager. Marietta heard a young girl's voice, but she knew it wasn't Susie.
Susie. I know my own daughter's voice.
Gallatin County prosecutor Thomas Olson, who had been hoping for more evidence before an arrest, feared Masterson was more dangerous than ever.
I was in a state of panic. I immediately assumed he had taken another child. And we knew he had to act. We couldn't wait any longer.
When Masterson came back into town, they decided to make the arrest and hoped to find more evidence against him later. He offered no resistance. He had already hired one of the area's top attorneys. Among his personal effects, they discovered stationery from the Salt Lake City motel where the latest call originated, with the name Travis written on it. Authorities executed a search warrant created with the help of FBI profilers, according to Deputy Don Houghton.
They told us that a suspect in this kind of a crime or these kind of crimes would probably keep souvenirs or trophies of his victims. to include everything from jewelry, clothing, to body parts. Our search warrant listed all those items.
Inside the freezer, deputies made a grisly discovery. Packages wrapped in butcher's paper, marked with the initials of the murdered woman, Sandra Marie Smulligan. Then, they found a human hand with 2 severed fingers clutched in its palm. They discussed the evidence with Masterson's attorney, who announced his client had a shocking confession.
The attorney says that David's going to admit to 4 murders, and that hit me like a sledgehammer.
Masterson told them about the 4 killings. They began in 1967. He was a high school senior when he committed the first one. A fellow student had picked a fight with him. One day he spotted the student's brother fishing with a friend. He killed the student's brother for revenge.
Help!
Why the Boy Scout? What did he do?
Masterson said his second murder was when he killed the Boy Scout at the Headwaters campground in 1968.
Kick me out.
He did it to embarrass the local troop that had terminated his participation with the Scouts. His third victim was Susie Yeager. He waited until he thought everyone was asleep. He said he took Susie to the Horseshoe Hills Ranch, where they had found Sandra Smulligan's bones. He strangled her, dismembered her body, and scattered her remains.
Anything special stand out? Just somebody else?
Everyone wanted to know why.
Don't like it, or
Masterson had no answer.
just upset?
He also confessed to killing Sandra Smulligan. After she refused to see him again, he broke into her apartment.
Sandra, I want you to keep your mouth shut. Listen to me. Keep your mouth shut. Don't move. You'll be all right.
His plan was to abduct her. But when he covered her mouth with duct tape, he inadvertently covered her nose, too.
If you don't move, it'll all be over here.
As he packed her clothes, Sandra Smulligan suffocated.
Sandra.
At the same ranch, he dismembered her body, then incinerated the remains over a fire of cedar shingles and spread her bones among Susie's.
It was late. I mean, I think it was like 3 a.m. And my lasting vision of David was that as he confessed to 4 murders, he seemed to shrink smaller and smaller in stature and size. And so at the end, he was a shell of a person.
Thanks, sir.
Deputies returned him to jail, but he never made it to trial. Although prosecutors told them they would not seek the death penalty, David Masterson hanged himself with a towel hours after he confessed. In southern Louisiana, a vicious killer is on the loose, slaughtering his victims in their own homes. The body count rises. Authorities struggle in their search for evidence. They resort to behavioral analysis, hoping to recognize a pattern that will help them identify a sadistic murderer.
Louisiana, a brutal killer turned a rural area into his personal hunting ground. He preyed on the defenseless, the weak, and the elderly. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. The killer would lie in wait, often striking while his victims slept. No one was safe, even in their own homes. Working with police, FBI profilers helped to identify a madman, to catch him before he could strike again.
Laplace, Louisiana, May 9th, 1997. At 9:46 a.m., James Lowell Jr., a deputy with the St. John's Parish Sheriff's Department, stops by his parents' home. Lowell's sister had called him at work, concerned why their parents aren't answering their phone. The deputy discovers the front door is ajar.
Mom? Mom?
He finds his father, James Lowell Sr., on the floor.
Dad? Mom?
His face is covered with blood.
Dad! Mom!
He checks his father's pulse
Dad!
and finds none.
Mom! Mom!
He looks for his mother. He finds her in the kitchen, brutally assaulted. Anne Marie Lowell is unconscious and her pulse is faint, but she's alive.
Dispatch is low! Dispatch is low!
The deputy calls for an ambulance and backup.
My dad's dead, my mom's scared. We both send back her, please.
Within minutes, officers, detectives, and EMTs respond to the scene. The brutal attack shocks Detective Todd Himmel of the St. John Sheriff's Department.
This is a well-respected family in the community, well-known, good people. Most of our homicides are either drug-related or maybe an argument that escalated. To have a home invasion homicide is uncommon for this area. When I first made entry into the house, my first reaction was very gruesome. A tremendous amount of blood on the floor and the walls. The injuries to the victims were quite gruesome.
EMTs worked to stabilize Mrs. Lowell for the short trip to River Parish Hospital. Later that day, she dies from her injuries. Deputy Lowell tells investigators how he found his parents. He points out a pair of eyeglasses on the kitchen floor that belonged to his father. Investigators find a blood-stained hammer near Mr. Lowell's body. The nature of the wounds to the victim's head and face lead investigators to believe this is the weapon that killed him. The detectives search the house.
When I made entry into the den area and observed the female's glasses laying on the floor with some blood, it was obvious that she was struck in that area.
Investigators find a large sugarcane knife, sometimes called a side blade or sling blade.
It's covered in blood. It was obvious that it was a weapon that inflicted the injuries on the female victim.
Detectives noticed that several volumes of an encyclopedia have been thrown to the floor.
Well, that's why he's sick. I'm finished over there. Okay. Ooh, did you see that?
We got money. That's a $100 bill out there.
Checking the books still on the shelf, they find the Lowells had hidden nearly $12,000 there.
Let's just pile them up here.
Family members later confirmed the total. The intruder did not find any of the money. Investigators theorized the killer's search was interrupted.
He was very close to finding the money. Apparently he was scared before he was able to. The son coming home to check on his parents may have scared him off.
Crime scene technicians dust nearly every exposed surface in the house, but the only fingerprints they find match the victims or close family members.
Hey, Tony, come here. I need you to get a couple of pictures of this.
Investigators search the exterior of the house. They discover the phone line, as well as the wires to the alarm, have been cut. And one of the garage windows has been removed.
We were to determine point of entry, which is the side window. Apparently the suspect had enough time to actually take a knife and remove the putty from a pane of glass from the old wooden windows.
Detective Himmel suspects the killer took his time breaking into the Lowells' home.
The particular location that he had made entry into was camouflaged by a fence and some trees, so in essence, no one would have seen him if they were passing on the road, so he did have time to make entry and to actually whittle away the putty from that window pane before he made entry into the residence.
Investigators spread out to interview the Lowells' neighbors. Although LaPlace is a tight-knit community, nobody has noticed anything unusual. Detectives run background checks on everyone who has recently come in contact with the family. They discover that a handyman hired by the Lowells is an ex-convict. He spent 5 years in prison for manslaughter.
We began an investigation looking into his background. From that point, we kept him under constant surveillance.
3 days later, police bring the handyman in for questioning. He claims he is innocent, but a polygraph exam suggests he is being deceptive.
Anything?
Detectives obtain a warrant to search the suspect's home for clues. Crime technicians use luminol and black lights to hunt for blood evidence. Investigators theorize that the ex-con could have murdered the Lowells and quickly returned to his home. Once there, he inevitably would have deposited small amounts of blood. But their efforts turn up no evidence. Although detectives are unable to connect the suspect to the murders, they continue to keep him under surveillance. 5 days later, Detective Himmel arrives at the scene of a second brutal homicide. Another prominent member of the community has been murdered. Officers responding to a missing persons call discovered the body of 58-year-old Joyce Gilmer in the backyard of her home. According to her family, her car is missing. The victim has 4 bloody lacerations to the back of the head. Detective Himmel immediately suspects that this murder is related to the double homicide.
There were several similarities between the two. Namely, both victims were well known throughout the community, elderly. They either owned or had owned their own business at one point. The weapon of choice was a sharp-edged object.
Investigators now realize they can rule out the possibility that the ex-con is the killer.
He was under constant surveillance at the time that this crime had occurred, so we could eliminate him as being a suspect because we felt strongly that both crimes were related.
Detective Himmel walks through the house looking for signs of an intruder. He finds none until he gets to the master bedroom. It appears as if the killer knew exactly what he wanted. The victim's family reported a safe is missing.
The only room that was disturbed was the master bedroom closet where the safe was located, which indicated to us that the perpetrator knew exactly where to go and knew exactly what he was looking for when he went into the residence. And having knowledge of that, the safe existed inside that master bedroom, it's a good possibility he knew the victim, that it could be one reason that he did murder her, is because she knew who he was and could identify him.
The investigators find no evidence of blood inside the house. They conclude that the victim was likely forced into the backyard, where she was murdered. Crime scene investigators process the house for evidence, including hair, fiber, and fingerprints. The killer has been careful. Once again, he has left nothing behind. Later that day, investigators find Mrs. Gilmer's car in the parking lot of a hotel just a few miles from her home. Deputies tow the vehicle to the sheriff's impound lot for analysis.
When the car was found, the keys were still in it, so it was obvious that he had used that area just to dump the vehicle and had gotten into another vehicle, which was either parked there previously or he was picked up by someone.
Crime technicians collect several fingerprints, but they only match the victim and members of the victim's family. For Detective Himmel, the car is another dead end.
We didn't have any physical evidence that could determine who the perpetrator was or even assist us in determining who the perpetrator was.
Investigators review videotapes taken by the hotel's security cameras. Unfortunately, the cameras were not focused on the area where the stolen vehicle was abandoned.
It was a very stressful, very tense moment, trying to determine who's responsible for these crimes, working 20 hours a day, getting 4 hours of sleep a night. It was quite stressful.
With limited resources and almost no evidence to go on, the St. John Sheriff's Department calls the New Orleans field office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Detectives hope FBI profilers can help identify a vicious killer. Special Agent Dan Funk travels to the scenes of both homicides, starting with the Lowell murders. Investigators are still processing the home 2 weeks after the slayings.
Part of my job, being at the field, at the scene, is to provide all the information that the profiling unit at Quantico needs to do their work. They're not at the scene. I'm the local eyes and ears for that unit. What I do is go to the crime scene, try to absorb as much information as I can, and then provide it back to Quantico.
Agent Funk tries to determine step by step what happened the day of the murder.
I'm looking for pre-offense behavior, offense behavior, and post-offense behavior, which basically means what the subject and the victims did prior to the crime, during the crime, and then after the crime.
Small clues help the agent establish a timeline.
It appeared that the subject spent maybe the whole night in the garage waiting for the victims to wake up. We noticed that because the newspaper was picked up in the morning, and it was the victim's routine to immediately pick up the paper upon rising. And then it looked like there was coffee grounds in the garbage to indicate that they made coffee and were settling down for their morning routine before the attack occurred.
There's one that belongs in the garage.
According to the family, the murder weapon, a cane knife or sling blade, was kept in the garage with other tools. The killer had literally hacked Mrs. Lowell to death with a 40-inch blade that he found in her own garage.
You could see blood on the floor, blood splattered on the walls. You proceeded through the house, and wherever you looked, there was blood. You could just see marks on the walls and on door jambs where you could picture that the subject just swinging this wildly at the victim.
What are you doing? Are you alone?
This was probably the worst crime scene that I've ever seen. And it spread throughout the house, which indicated that there was just an ongoing confrontation between the victims and the subject that just went on and on.
With the discovery of Mrs. Lowell's eyeglasses in the den, investigators believe that was where the killer first encountered his victim. Since her body was located in the kitchen, investigators speculate she was chased there by the intruder. The discovery of Mr. Lowell's eyeglasses on the kitchen floor suggests a possible scenario.
To have Mr. Lowell's glasses in the kitchen, we believe that's the initial point of contact between him and the perpetrator.
Investigators theorize that Mr. Lowell entered the kitchen attempting to defend his wife, but they note his body was found in the hallway.
We believe he was either trying to get another weapon or trying to get to a phone that was in the hallway.
After viewing both the Lowell and Gilmer crime scenes, Agent Funk is confident he has enough information to take to Quantico.
We definitely believe that this was a case that the profiling unit could assist on. There was a lot of interaction between the victim and the subject, and there were a lot of activity that could be used to come up with an offender profile.
But could FBI profilers help identify the killer before he strikes again? In Louisiana, a killer has murdered 3 prominent citizens in a small town. He strikes with extreme violence, but leaves few clues.
Away from our victims.
At FBI headquarters in Quantico, Virginia, Special Agent Dan Funk and local investigators brief FBI profilers on the murders.
For you to my partner, he's got the newest case that we're working.
The expert observes that the Lowell crime scene reflects a mixed behavior.
So it's a good two-handed weapon, very sharp. It's not worth anything.
The subject was organized in the burglaries, but disorganized in the murders. The subject brought tools with him to disable alarms and phone lines and to enter the residence, but he was disorganized once he entered it. He didn't bring a weapon with him, but he found weapons of opportunity located at the scene.
Profilers also note that careful planning gave way to extreme violence when the intruder confronted his victims. The brutality of the murders suggests a chaotic personality.
We've got some good stuff here, some good solid police.
But the profiler tells St. John's investigators that he will not be able to create a profile powerful enough based on only 2 incidents. They need more data.
We can't just sit around and wait. What I am going to suggest is
the profiler's advice to the investigators is to go back and search through their cold case files to look for similar unsolved murders in nearby jurisdictions.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Investigators from St. John's Sheriff's Department meet with detectives from nearby parishes. The detectives share the details of their cold case files and make a chilling discovery. They find that over the last year, 3 unsolved homicides bear striking similarities to the Lowell and Gilmer murders. Records show that 8 months earlier, in nearby Ascension Parish, the owner of an auto repair shop was beaten to death with an aluminum baseball bat. A substantial amount of money was stolen from the victim's home.
He's in his late 50s. He owns an auto repair shop in my district. It happened about a year before your double murder.
5 months later, in St. James Parish, a 58-year-old woman was stabbed and beaten to death in her home. Police found a bloody knife in the sink. They were unable to recover any fingerprints from the weapon or at the scene.
Photos. They had a 58-year-old woman.
Less than 3 weeks later, also in Ascension Parish, a 71-year-old woman was beaten and stabbed to death in her bedroom. The victim was stabbed multiple times and bludgeoned with a trophy. Detectives found an open safe in a bedroom closet. The contents, value unknown, had been removed.
What was strange was she was found under an overturned couch.
Phone lines and alarm wires to the residence had been cut. Investigators conclude that as many as 6 homicides may have been committed by the same killer. But before the task force can ask the FBI to review the new data and create a more detailed profile, there is another attack. Shortly after 4 o'clock in the morning, on July 7th, 1997, detectives from the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Department arrive at the home of Vincent and Julie Rowland. A uniformed officer briefs Sergeant Detective Mike Toney.
The sheriff's office responded to the 911 call that we received. After the sheriff's office patrol division arrived at the residence, they learned that there was a home invasion. It was a brutal attack. It was a vicious attack upon 2 elderly people of the community.
Detective Toney learns the couple sustained severe lacerations and gunshot wounds. Miraculously, they are both alive. The next day, Toney visits the hospital and learns that both victims have been stabilized. The doctor tells investigators that dozens of .410 gauge shotgun pellets were removed from the face, neck, and chest areas of both victims. If the Rowlands had been struck by larger gauge ammunition, they might not have survived. Among his injuries, Mr. Rowland has a large knife wound and shotgun blast to his face.
It was remarkable that he was able to talk and give us information. He was determined to give this information because he wanted his attacker caught. And he gave a wealth of information as to how the attack took place.
The man tells investigators he and his wife were in bed, asleep.
It was around 2 or so in the morning. He was awakened when this large 30-pound rock was thrown upon his face. As he rises up out of the bed, the attacker starts hitting him in the facial area with the side blade. He tries to defend himself from the attack.
The man struck him with the sling blade over and over again. Mr. Rowland said he was ordered to open a safe that was in the bedroom closet. He told the man he couldn't open the safe because he was hurt too badly. He and his wife were forced into the bathroom.
The combination of the safe.
To buy time, he intentionally gave his attacker the wrong combination.
36, 4, 34. Wrong answer. That's not the combination.
He ordered Mrs. Rowland to open the safe or he would kill them both.
Go! 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 Open the safe. Let's go, you're taking forever. Open it up! Back up.
The safe contained over $100,000 in cash. After cleaning out the safe,
Stay there, I'll kill you.
the intruder moved to the opposite side of the house.
No, it's all right. Stay here.
Mr. Rowland could see him through the bathroom window.
All right. Stay there. Don't go. No, stay here. I'll take care of this.
He left the bathroom and went for the chest in the bedroom closet where he kept 2 guns. He hid behind the sofa and waited. He had taken the wrong revolver.
No.
The one he kept loaded was still in the closet. The intruder had found a shotgun in a gun cabinet.
No.
Mr. Rowland was hit in the face.
He laid there pretending to be dead, at which time he heard someone walk up to him, which he didn't realize it was his wife. He hears a second shot goes off, and then he realizes his wife had just been shot.
Mrs. Rowland tells investigators that she laid still until the intruder left. She then tried to call 911, but the phone line had been cut. Terrified and bleeding, she managed to drive to her son's house, where he called the police. Ascension Parish detectives share details of the Rowland statements with investigators. They are confident the attack is connected to the homicides they are investigating.
They were linked due to the type of home invasion it was. The perpetrator entered the residence through a window. Prior to opening the window, he had cut the phone wires to the residence, which would disable the alarm system. And then after entering the residence, seeking a weapon of opportunity, and then attacking the victims while they were in the house.
The detectives also note similarities in the killer's victims.
They were all elderly and owned businesses, and they were wealthy.
The Rowlands are the only people who have come face to face with this brutal killer and lived to tell about it. investigators return to the hospital with a sketch artist who creates a composite drawing of the suspect based on the Roland's eyewitness description.
They described him as a white male with kind of shaggy-looking hair, thin, very authoritative voice. They described his voice as being of a person from the River Parish, from this area, as far as having a strong South Louisiana accent.
Investigators released the composite drawing of the assailant to the local news media. The wanted man is described as being a white male in his 20s or 30s, of average height with medium build and sandy blonde hair. Now, law enforcement from 3 Louisiana jurisdictions finally have their first lead in identifying a ruthless killer. An elderly Louisiana couple narrowly survives a brutal assault on their lives. Their attacker has been linked to 6 murders in 10 months. Now the suspected serial killer is on the loose with over $100,000 in cash. Armed with the survivors' statements, Louisiana investigators returned to Quantico, Virginia to present the newly linked cases to the FBI's profiling unit. The profilers agreed that the 6 homicides and the latest attack are most likely all connected. They suspect the killer lives or works in the area. He is nocturnal, and he may have recently purchased items he normally could not afford. The investigators now have a rough sketch of their suspect, but they need to move fast if they are to catch him. FBI Special Agent Dan Funk.
Now you had 2 live witnesses, subjects under pressure to believe that there's people out there who can identify him. So we believe that either he would change his appearance, or he might even leave the area.
You've got several good...
The profilers recommend forming an official task force and asking the public to look out for anyone exhibiting any of the characteristics identified by the unit.
That's what we're going to recommend. We can do that.
The public appeal prompts thousands of phone calls to the task force hotline. A security guard from a local video poker casino provides an intriguing lead. He tells a detective that one of the regular customers at the casino looks a lot like the composite drawing he saw on TV. Detective Mike Toney of the Ascension Sheriff's Department.
He described the individual as a person who, before these attacks, would come in there and spend very little money. Poor dresser. Since the attacks, he would come in, he would spend a lot of money. He would then started sporting jewelry, riding a new motorcycle, basically changed his appearance.
But the security guard does not know the customer's name.
He gave a description of the person, what he looked like, as well as the vehicle that he was driven. And this vehicle was very unique. It was actually a truck, a large truck with a large boom on the back of it that was used to like lift motors and stuff and carry them around.
The detective reviews the security guard's recorded statement with the rest of the task force. His description of the customer's behavior is consistent with the profiler's analysis. Hearing the security guard's remarks about the customer's truck, a detective realizes he knows the man being described.
A pickup truck, it had a homemade hoist on the back of it.
The customer is an auto mechanic who once worked for a friend of his, the same man who had been beaten to death with a baseball bat in his home 6 months earlier. A murder linked to their suspect.
Yeah, there's a handful of them.
The mechanic's name is Daniel Blank. Blank is a former employee of an auto repair shop owned by the victim. He was one of 36 people police interviewed in connection with that crime. Although he had voluntarily given a statement to the police, detectives found nothing suspicious. A check of his record reveals one prior arrest for a minor theft in St. James Parish.
That's one side. Anybody want to go out and talk to him?
Investigators travel to Daniel Blank's last known residence to ask him some questions. A woman answers the door. She says she's the mother of Sonia Radford, Daniel Blank's girlfriend.
She advised us that Daniel Blank and his girlfriend had just moved to Texas, that he wasn't there. Left my information with her. If she would speak to him after we leave, would she give the information to him that we needed to talk to him?
Very important that he gets up with us. Okay, we greatly appreciate that. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
10 minutes after Detective Tony returns to his office, he receives a telephone call.
Detective Tony.
It is Daniel Blank.
Hey, listen, can I put you on hold just a second?
He says he is calling from Onalaska, Texas.
And while I'm on the phone with him, I advised him that we were investigating several homicides of elderly people. And from those homicides, a large amount of money was stolen from these people. And he just started being a wealth of information. He started talking about how he was gambling, that he was winning a lot of money, that he had all the receipts for his gambling winnings. And during the conversation, he tells me that he will be back in Louisiana within a few days. So it was set up where he would come and meet with us when he came back into Louisiana.
Okay, Daniel. Well, please call me as soon as you get back here, okay?
All right. Thank you. All right.
But Daniel Blank has no intention of returning to Louisiana. So investigators will have to go and find him. In Louisiana, authorities identify a suspect in a series of brutal murders. But as the investigation heats up, the suspect moves to a small town in the neighboring state of Texas. Federal agents in Louisiana contact Special Agent Rick Locke at the FBI's Lufkin, Texas resident agency. Agent Locke often works undercover, so his identity must be protected.
Anytime that there's a case that would involve the violent death of a number of people and the possibility of a serial killer on the loose, that would be moved to a #1 priority.
Agent Locke asks Lieutenant Detective Mike Nettles from the Polk County Sheriff's Department to locate and surveil Daniel Blank. Nettles searches local utility records and finds Blank living with his girlfriend, Sonia Radford, in a trailer park in Onalaska.
Once we identified him, then we started working on trying to build a case to see, was he spending a lot of money? Did he have a lot of money? Because we knew that there was a lot of money taken from some of the murder scenes in South Louisiana.
Good look at him.
Special Agent Locke and Detective Nettles keep the suspect under a close watch.
When we were conducting the surveillance of Blank, we did notice that he had purchased a vehicle since he had arrived in Texas. He had purchased a trailer home. He then leased a automobile repair shop business and opened a business known as Daniel's Automotive.
Public records reveal that Blank has leased the garage in his girlfriend's name. After surveilling Blank for nearly 2 weeks, Agent Locke and Deputy Nettles meet with the Louisiana Task Force and a Texas U.S. attorney. The investigators brief the prosecutor on the results of a financial background check on Daniel Blank.
He was spending a large amount of money, which fit the behavioral profile. After doing a financial background on him, we learned that in this year where he was spending all this money, he had no means of income that was showing up on his state employment records.
During an earlier phone conversation with Blank, Detective Tony broached the subject of his income.
And that's when he started going into his gambling habits. All the money that I got, I won from gambling. So we had a person who was spending literally thousands of dollars at local gambling casinos. And then after doing the background and financial records through the casinos, we learned that he was actually spending more money than he was winning. So he was actually in the negative for his gambling records.
In addition to his massive gambling losses, Blank has purchased an SUV, a car, a new motorcycle, 2 trailer lots for $22,000, a $14,000 trailer, and a $4,000 above-ground swimming pool. Records reveal that most of the purchases were made with cash. The prosecutor agrees that the circumstantial evidence is impressive, but investigators have not produced any evidence that places Blank at any of the crime scenes or that connects him to a weapon. If investigators hope to make their case against Blank, they need hard, physical evidence. In Louisiana, technicians have recovered many latent fingerprints from the crime scenes. Analysts have matched most of the prints to the victims and their family members. Technicians compare the remaining unknown prints to a set of Daniel Blank's fingerprints, obtained during an arrest for an earlier minor violation. They determined that the prints do not match, but Blank's old record is incomplete. There are no palm prints in his file. And investigators have several palm prints from the crime scenes listed as unknown. The investigators devise a plan to obtain a set of palm prints from Daniel Blank. Through a records check, Detective Nettles and Agent Locke have learned that Blank does not have a valid driver's license. After weeks of surveillance, they have observed that Blank has a habit of running a particular stop sign near his business. The plan is for Nettles to perform a traffic stop the next time he does.
Driver's license registration? I don't have my license on me.
As predicted, Blank is unable to produce a valid driver's
My
license.
license expired.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and have to go down to the courthouse.
Is all this really necessary, you think?
Fine, you walk around the side of the car.
Yeah.
Nettles places him under arrest and takes him to the Polk County Sheriff's Office. During the booking process, officers take a full set of finger and palm prints from Blank. If the palm prints match the prints at any of the Louisiana crime scenes, investigators will have the evidence they need to obtain an indictment. Blank pays a $50 fine and is released. At the fingerprint lab, technicians compare the palm prints to latent prints collected at the crime scenes. In case after case, the results are negative. They do not match. All the prints collected at the crime scenes either belong to family members, victims, or remain unknown. So for now, suspected serial killer Daniel Blank will remain free. In Louisiana, 6 people are dead, the victims of a vicious killer. An intense investigation has revealed a prime suspect, but no hard evidence to tie him to the crimes. The suspect is volatile. Investigators have to get him off the streets. Now the only person who can provide the evidence they need is the suspect himself, FBI Special Agent Rick Locke.
It was decided that we must continue the case by planning for a detailed interview with Blank, as well as conducting a search of his properties. We were looking for any evidence which would definitely link him to the crimes in Louisiana.
Investigators served Daniel Blank with warrants to search his business and home. Detective Nettles asks Blank if he will come to the courthouse for a voluntary interview. He agrees. Blank is not arrested, but he is advised of his Miranda rights.
Do you mind if I record this conversation and
put it on video? No, I
have any problems with that?
No, go ahead.
Louisiana detectives Mike Toney and Todd Himmel conduct the critical interview.
A little bit about yourself.
It's a lot of pressure. You know that you either get a confession and solve these cases or you don't, and you have nothing. We had no physical evidence, and the circumstantial evidence wasn't that great to bring him to trial. We knew we needed a confession. We knew we needed him to tell us that he was responsible for killing these people. Without that, we had nothing. Our strategy was to first begin with background information with Daniel, asking questions that we knew the answer to. His family life, his education, his work background, that probably consumed an hour and a half. We then moved on to covering some of the homicides. The interview started to get interesting, I'd say probably within the third hour. At that point, we had challenged him on some of these homicides. We had asked him if he thought it odd that two of his former employers were deceased.
But I damn sure ain't kill him.
At that point, he became a little agitated. We were walking a fine line. We didn't want to upset him where he would walk out. He was not under arrest. He could have left at any moment.
So it wasn't me. I don't have nothing.
Blank continues to deny any involvement in the murders. It appears unlikely that he will confess to anything. Down the hall, investigators question Blank's girlfriend, Sonia Radford. She has also agreed to a voluntary interview.
Investigating several homicides.
It was entirely a consensual interview. She was free to leave. The interviewers approached her and asked if she would willingly visit with them in an interview room at the courthouse, and that was done. She did agree.
Sonia tells investigators she stayed out of Daniel's affairs, but she does admit he would often go out at night without telling her where he was going. Sonia also admits that a couple of times she dropped him off around the areas where the murders had been committed. Blank always told her he was going to repair someone's car. Sonia tells investigators she never wanted to believe Daniel was involved. A few doors down, Blank continues to deny any responsibility for the crimes.
I need you to go on record. I'd like you to take a polygraph, if that's okay with you.
He even agrees to take a polygraph exam.
Just answer yes or no.
I believe he agreed to take the polygraph because he needed to give the appearance that he was cooperative and that he wanted us to believe he was innocent.
The examiner asks Blank if he ever struck Mrs. Gilmer, the elderly woman found outside her home. Blank answers
no.
After 3 tests, the polygraph examiner reports that Blank is exhibiting deceptive behaviors. He is most likely not telling the truth. Blank is beginning to show signs of stress. His interrogators decide to further destabilize him by introducing an emotional subject, the recent death of his mother.
My father was no help.
I could tell that his relationship was close with his mother. From that point, I just discussed his upbringing. He came from a large family. I knew it wasn't easy for him because of the size of the family and both parents trying to provide food and support and housing for their children.
Daniel, did you love your mother?
Yeah.
If she were alive today and you were involved in these murders, do you think she'd want you to do the right thing?
Yeah.
Did you mean to kill Mrs. Gilmore?
No.
That was very important. That was the first admission that he had made that he was responsible for committing that crime.
Once Blank begins to confess, he doesn't stop. He ultimately admits to 6 homicides and 2 attempted murders. He tells Detective Himmel about his first murder, which occurred 8 months before the St. John's double homicide. Blank tells investigators he worked for the victim and claimed the man owed him money for a job he had done. He says he entered his boss's home and found him asleep on the couch. He tried to take his wallet, but the man woke up. Blank claims the man attacked him with a baseball bat. When he slipped and fell, Blank got a hold of the bat and started hitting back. He didn't stop beating the man until he was dead. Blank said he took $800 or $900 from the man's pockets.
He knew what he was doing was wrong. He knew the difference between right and wrong. And I believe after that first homicide, it just became easier and easier every time it occurred again.
In his confession, Blank consistently claims he acted in self-defense.
I shot them.
He insists that all 6 murder victims attacked him first.
So he was trying to kill you.
They were trying to kill me.
I appreciate you being honest.
Blank's interpretation may be self-serving, but his memory of the crime scenes is nearly photographic.
The recollection was amazing. The amount of detail he was able to remember, being able to draw diagrams of the homes, draw diagrams of weapons that he used. His attention to detail was amazing.
The confession continues for 13 hours.
By the time he got to the end, he was very comfortable, drinking his soft drink, smoking a cigarette, very comfortable, nonchalantly discussing these crimes in detail.
Authorities in Texas arrest Daniel Blank on murder charges and then extradite him to Louisiana to face trial. Daniel Blank is convicted of 5 homicides and receives 3 life terms and 2 death sentences. He is currently on death row at the Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola. The state of Louisiana decides not to pursue charges for the 6th homicide and attempted murders, confident that Daniel Blank will never leave this place alive.